Hello, public opinion aficionados, and welcome to Rasmussen Reports Reality Check. I'm the head pollster, Mark Mitchell. Come on, what a day. What a day. We have Tesla cars burning all over the country. The Trump-Putin call, judges like going absolutely insane, all these woke judges, the space rescue, and now the JFK files. And listen, I really wanted to get numbers out there. I wanted to go into the historical context of our JFK numbers as a benchmark, because I think tomorrow, after 12 hours of people reading all of these files that just got dropped, I think we might be looking at a little bit of a different world. And so that's one of the reality checks we're going to talk about tonight. Taking a look at what people think today and in the last 10 or 20 years about JFK and what they're going to think about tomorrow. But basically, this is the sentiment today. I got the JFK files, but this was it in its entirety. JFK blown away. What else do I have to say? And our friend, the Quartering, is echoing a similar sentiment. The CIA killed JFK. That's the too long didn't read so far. So what we'll be able to answer tonight is, well, did most people think that's what they were going to see? And I think that's a really important aspect. But listen, please don't leave the stream. Don't leave the stream. But afterwards, you can go over to the National Archives. And I think this will be crowdsourced. Supposedly, there's 80,000 pages of documents that just got dropped today. Really peculiar timing. It was after the splashdown of the SpaceX rescue mission. Pretty cool. I think that was a classy Trump move, or maybe just a coincidence. But the last time I remember having to crowdsource a set of documents this deep was in the 2016 WikiLeaks and Podesta emails. That was an all hands on deck group effort to dig through those things. But now, I don't know. I think we're going to see a little bit different. Everybody's on Twitter sharing all the different cogent parts they're starting to see. And I think we're going to have the benefit of artificial intelligence to help us a little bit this time. I'm really excited to see what tomorrow is going to bring. But let's go back. Let's go back in time. And we can do this because Rasmussen Reports exists. There are other pollsters out there who just poll election horse races. They'll put out a few numbers every couple months, and they won't really even tell you what the context of public opinion is. That's why I think that our information, our view, is pretty relevant, because it's like, well, what's the context? Are people going to find out that the CIA killed JFK tonight or not? And does that mean anything? Well, how many of them thought that to begin with? What are the party breakdowns? What does that mean for people's loyalty and all the other things they think? So, this is what we do. We cover these stories day in and day out. And when things happen in the news, we can look back and say, well, this is what people were thinking at the time. And at this particular time, it was November of 2013. And we decided, I think this was our very first time to go into the JFK conspiracy. And let me tell you, in a list of all the things that we do that are taboo, this was probably not the most, but very few people polled on this. I found only really a couple times it came up in polling, looking back in a search I could do. And so not a lot of people willing to, scratch this particular itch, this particular topic. And that's what we do. Nothing, absolutely nothing is off limits. Because we talked about, I think it was Friday, we talked about our 2014 conspiracy poll, which I've got queued up as well that we can look at. And definitely nothing was off limits there. We talked about maybe doing another conspiracy poll soon. I think what we might be considering doing is maybe in a week or two setting some super chat goals and crowdfunding a standalone national poll. I think people like the idea of conspiracies, but we could look at other things to put together a poll and throw some fun stuff in it and see if we can stump some people. And here's where we were at back in 2013, over a decade ago. JFK, 29% very favorable, 46% somewhat favorable. Really high numbers, way higher than any person that we're polling today. Although 2013 wasn't much longer after Obama got an approval rating into the 60s. This is obviously higher. What's that? 75%. So pretty good. And I think if we asked this today, these numbers would be smaller. But in many ways, when we've asked about JFK, his presidency measures up pretty fondly. Democrats had an 87% approval rating. Republicans only 17% very favorable, but 48% somewhat. And I really wish we had this question recently. I think that we would see probably even more of a shift and even bigger increase in Republican numbers just because of the way that the politics are realigning. But JFK, one of the best presidents ever, 27%. One of the worst presidents ever, 7%. Somewhere in between, 57%. What was President Kennedy's biggest achievement? The manned space program wins, 33%. Cuban Missile Crisis and Civil Rights Agenda not far behind at 22%. But let's skip ahead. Oh, this one's interesting, though. This one's interesting. I also wonder what the results for this question would be if we asked it again today. Would the Vietnam War have escalated if President Kennedy had not been assassinated? 18% yes, 17% no. Interesting. Maybe we'll ask this again if something in the JFK files, triggers like, hey, what was at the bottom of this? Is there any chatter about what went on? But here we go. Was John Fitzgerald Kennedy assassinated by a lone gunman, or was he the victim of a conspiracy? And in 2013, there was a lot of confusion about the topic. People were relatively split. 36% say he was assassinated by a lone gunman. 37% say he was the victim of a conspiracy, but a 27% not sure. That had been out of the news for a while. I don't think there was any news hooks. Maybe I'll go back and look at the story because this looks to me like the result of people who haven't really thought about the topic very much. And older people have stronger opinions, but it's still split 42% to 43%. People over 65. Again, this was back in 2013. So those people are in their mid 70s now, at least. Republicans say conspiracy, 41% to 32%. Democrats say lone gunman, 39% to 36%. And that's kind of interesting, too. This might be a signal of government trust creeping in. Obama was in the presidency at this particular point in time. Because I think it would be fair to say that if JFK was assassinated by our own federal government, it would have been essentially, I think, a right-wing part of that government, one that didn't like what he was doing and wanted to maintain sort of control of their intel apparatus and maintain, the build towards the war in Vietnam. But I just want to go out to this conspiracy question by... Do we have Obama approval? No, we don't. Really wanted to see that. Actually, this might be all adults and not likely voters. That's why. So let's skip ahead. We are going now to our 2014 conspiracy theory poll. And we paged through this the other night. It's a pretty fun poll. We just asked a whole bunch of true-false questions. The AIDS virus was created in a laboratory by the CIA. UFO stuff, William Shakespeare, President Obama is not an American citizen. See, nothing is off the table. And this was not the right time to be asking this question too, if you recall the whole history of the birther movement. But 23%, almost 1 in 4 Americans said, yeah, Obama is not an American citizen, including a plurality of Republicans, 41%. Only 37% of Republicans said false. But the first question here, true or false, President John Fitzgerald Kennedy was assassinated by more than one shooter. Different conspiracy, different question. The other question was lone gunman versus conspiracy. This is kind of the same, but different. Was he assassinated by more than one shooter? 32% say true, more older Americans than younger Americans. Exact split, 31% to 47% for Republicans or Democrats. Fast forward to 2017, and we're talking about JFK again. And the numbers about whether he was the best or worst president haven't really changed much. But that question, was he assassinated by a lone gunman or a victim of conspiracy? And for whatever reason, a couple of months into the Trump first term, the numbers changed. Going back, they were entirely different. Let's go here. 36% to 37% here, and then 43% to 33%. This might be an aspect of, well, where were we at the time? Trump had come in to higher right direction, wrong track numbers than we had seen in a long time. He came in on a really good approval according to our numbers. We were basically outliers in saying that. And they were higher certainly than he came in this term. But this was a couple of months after Russiagate broke, and people were absolutely assailing Trump. His approval rating had dropped into the high 30s. Maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe there was other stuff that came out. I don't know. But 43% assassinated by a lone gunman. And the numbers for Republicans are even higher. No, a complete reversal. They had said conspiracy more than lone gunmen, and they switched. 42% lone gunman, 35% conspiracy. And I don't think the Democrats moved much. These numbers are from 2023. So this is the benchmark. This is the last time we asked it. This is what Americans think, because I don't think anybody else has polled on this, obviously, in the last 2 years. This is what Americans think on the eve of the release of the JFK files. They've been waiting for years. Trump said he was going to do it in his first term. It never got done. People, got to him. Who was it? Was it the DNI? The Ratcliffe, or was it Pompeo? I think Pompeo was the one that said, no, we can't release that, Mr. President, even though you promised it. It would be too much for people to understand what the intel agencies were going on. Oh, there's people that are long dead that we can't dishonor them, or whatever the freaking reason. So these people had been promised the JFK files, didn't get them. And we're talking about, 2 or 3 years since then, but a lot of people, a lot happened, right? There was theoretically a violent insurrection on the Capitol. There was 2 years of COVID oppression, the vaccine mandate, a lot of stuff, like a lot of mistrust in the government, a lot of reasons to suspect that maybe things are different here. But really, again, the numbers didn't change that much. 38% said lone gunman. 38% said victim of conspiracy. So that's a move back in the other direction, but again, not as mistrusting as 2013. I think some of that might be to do with the fact that the electorate is now made up of some more younger people. Some of these older people that are around for JFK have obviously aged out, so to speak. But the Republican numbers are higher than ever, saying that it was a conspiracy, 47% to 31%. Democrats are more convinced than ever that it was a lone gunman, 47% to 28%. So not a lot of movement in the top line numbers, but the party numbers tell a pretty interesting situation. And the independents say conspiracy more than lone gunman too, which I think was new compared to the other numbers. So that was a change. But what we like about this set is this question here. And we put this in at my behest. How likely is it that the CIA was involved in a conspiracy to assassinate JFK? Okay. So now we're getting somewhere. The first question is what was the primary cause? Was he shot by one person, or was there some conspiracy? And, people obviously might load some stuff into that. It could be, well, that means multiple shooters. Maybe that means somebody was behind Lee Harvey Oswald. I don't know. But this one explicitly says, one of our branches of government intel, our intel agency, our premier foreign involved intel agency, were they involved? Obviously not supposed to be doing, anything here in the homeland to protect democracy. But were they involved in a conspiracy to assassinate JFK? We flipped a coin for CIA. We could have said FBI too. I don't know. But 42%, let's see, does it round up? No, it doesn't round up. 42% said at least somewhat likely, 21% very likely, and only 18% not at all likely. So this is somewhat split, but you have to say, not a lot of confidence here. Not a lot of people who are willing to emphatically tell you that the CIA was not involved in a conspiracy to assassinate a sitting president of the United States. And I think that only a Biden administration could have finally gotten us here. I think the Biden administration is what gave Trump the hero's journey arc and put the entire electorate through an experience that allowed Trump 2.0 to happen. Everything's on the table. Everything's under a microscope. It's all being re-examined. Every mind in America, no, but enough, right? Literally 42% think one of our intel agencies was involved in assassinating a sitting president. 48% of Republicans, almost half of Republicans, 25% very likely. Only 13% of Republicans say not at all likely. And independents, 42%, and even 37% of Democrats, right? Kennedy was a Democrat. Yeah, sure. CIA probably was involved in killing him. Only 47% of Democrats say not likely. And just humor me for a second. I know in this one that we have the numbers by Biden approval. Interesting. Not as much as a signal here as I thought we'd see. 47% of Biden's strong disapprovers say likely. 35% of Biden's strong approvers. But if you look at the previous question, here you see a massive signal. There's always something about Biden, about whether people loved Biden or hated Biden, that would drive the biggest difference in all of the crosstabs. This one isn't the biggest signal I've seen, but listen, strong approvers of Biden, 56% say Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, but it's only 29% of Biden haters, 46% say conspiracy. Everybody except Biden's strong approvers say conspiracy more than 40%. And then there's this, it's like Trump finally did this. But let's acknowledge he had other stuff on his mind in 2020, in the final weeks of 2021. And he's been out of office, obviously unable to do this stuff. So it's really only been, coming up on 2 months now that he made good on a really 80,000 pages. And so far, I have not seen sentiments that it's heavily redacted. The Biden administration says it cannot release all government records related to the Kennedy assassination because of national security concerns. Do you approve or disapprove of the Biden administration's decision to keep some Kennedy assassination records secret? And only 37% of U.S. likely voters approved of that. Only 19% strongly, and a pretty big majority, 54%, said no, we want it. 38% strongly disapproved. So there's a pretty big signal right here. And 36% of Democrats disapproved. Only 57% supported that. Only 31% strongly. 67% of Republicans disapproved and 63% of independents. So big numbers. This is one of the many things that Joe Biden could have done. Many things he could have done to convince people that he wasn't a statist authoritarian person willing to shove vaccines down people's throats and weaponize the Department of Justice. Let's just look at Biden approval again. Yeah. 77% of Biden's strong approvers. Oh, sure. Anything Biden does is good. We don't need transparency. 52% strongly approve. We don't need transparency at all. Who cares? Who cares who killed Kennedy? They don't want to know. Even the somewhat approves. It's a pretty big majority, 60%. Look. This is what I'm talking about. Look at Biden strong disapprovers. 88% disapprove of this particular decision, 74% strongly, and only 5% approve, only 1% strongly approve. So, like, that's one of the biggest ones I've ever seen. It's really incredible. Are there any other signals? People with graduate degrees, they don't want to know. They don't want to read this stuff. There's no curiosity here. The people who most strongly disapprove of Joe Biden not releasing the JFK files, and here's another really good example, like exhibit 567 of why this is a populist movement. People with only high school diplomas, high school graduates, 61% disapprove of this, 40% strongly, more than any other education type. Oh, no, wait, the high school dropouts are right there with them, 60%. It's literally just the people with graduate degrees that don't want to know this stuff. That's the core Biden approver. Affluent, graduate degree, works at a big corporation, probably a college professor, probably on USAID money, maybe works for a 501c3. I don't know. That's who votes for Joe Biden. That's who votes for Joe Biden. If you've learned something, please follow us at rasmussenreports.com, Rasmussen_poll at Twitter. Follow us on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Mark_R_Mitchell at Twitter. And thanks for watching.